तो हम ये बात कर रहे थे कि basic whenever so pre-authorization is one of the like main concepts. We understand the main concept really easily. We can always understand. It's really very easy to understand, and that's what I check when I'm taking the interview and all that for the freshers, that whether they can even understand the main concept or not, okay. Whether it makes sense to them. But for every main concept, there are multiple other things. So a fresher or a person maybe who's got just 1 year of experience would typically talk about anything from one perspective. Okay, but a person who's expert, he would always talk from multiple perspectives. These are the various perspectives to talk about the same thing, and that's why his answers will be very much. They look very much like very rich in content and stuff like that. He'll be talking the same things, but he'll be talking like everything about that same thing, and then his answers will look very much very rich. So these are various concepts. Sorry, these are various perspectives for any main concept. So we'll pick one concept, we'll go around it, go around the circle, and see what it means. So let's pick pre-authorization. Okay, I like this. So main concept is when a provider wants to perform a procedure on a patient or a subscriber or a member, he has to take the authorization from payer only for certain procedures. Right? Yeah. So once he obtains pre-authorization, then he goes ahead and does the procedure, and then he submits the bill, and then payer checks whether the procedure is something that he already approved, and then only they release the payment. So this is what at a high level the main concept is. So whatever we discuss now, so this is the most important model. Mm-hmm. This traverses 3 different levels of looking at anything that is related to IT. Typically, when we are discussing ideas, in this club like this thing. It could be what we discuss is a business concept. So we understand the business concept really well. It all makes sense. And there could be multiple other examples. For example, let's say you think that iPhone should not be, they should not release iPhone in Malaysia. They should release those things. We think about these things, right? When we discuss things, then we discuss at this level. So these things start to make sense to us. Then they do make sense. This is one of the primary criteria. I mean, if you are able to understand these things, then only you can think of becoming a BA or get into IT properly. But when it starts to hit IT, when it starts to get to the IT level, we have to first understand a very important thing called business process. Again, we do know what a business process is. Business process is a sequence of steps, right? Like which are needed to be able to perform a certain task, right? Now, business process in this case, in case of IT, has to be extremely detailed. For example, the first step itself is actually a full-blown process for me. For example, the first process is they will obtain the authorization. So first is when the patient is in front of the provider, there's already an encounter going on. That's a technical language. So you understand these things, right? So you'll understand everything really fast. So there is already an encounter. Encounter is a keyword which basically means patient is in front of provider. Encounter. So he's already done a lot of procedure. He's already done tests and everything. Now at this point, he determines that it is something that needs a pretty big procedure. So first, for every procedure, he has to do a check whether it's a big procedure or a small procedure. Okay. And that criteria could be different for every payer. Yeah. Right? So for every member. So he has to see, that payer might say, if this guy is there, then this procedure is routine for him, not a problem. But that same payer, for some other patient, he might say, this guy, this is not a routine procedure for him, you should take authorization. Yeah. So it's a part of the benefits plan. Yeah. So he should check the benefits profile. Mm-hmm. As part of benefits profile, he should see whether the procedure he is about to perform comes under list of procedures that need pre-authorization, or whether it is just he can just go do it without any authorization and all. Yeah. So this whole determination is a full algorithm in itself. Yeah. And so this is the first step of the process. He'll determine this. Once it determines, then he either goes ahead and call, or he submits a request in the software. Mm-hmm. Two things will happen. Either it will get auto-approved, or it will go through the approval cycle on the payer side. Mm-hmm. Once the payer approves it, then he will get some number. Right? That is a process, business process. Whether they do it on paper, whether they do it on this thing, they'll give him some number. This is approval ID for this particular encounter. Okay. And then as part of the encounter, When he submits a claim, he will say, okay, this is
the number. And
this is the number.
Yeah.
And then when the claim comes in, they will match the number with the pre-authorization number with the number on their file and see, okay, yes, we did give the authorization to this guy,
at the time. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This whole process, when you start to jot down, becomes like the process that, that becomes the business process that can be used for creating an IT system.
Yeah.
Each and every small step has to be kind of jotted down. So we are studying it from two perspectives. One is obviously we're trying to understand pre-authorization.
Okay.
Second one is we're trying to understand what this whole diagram is.
Okay.
So that we'll be basically preparing 3 or 4 examples. In case of freshers, I typically prepare one example. And that is pre-authorization actually.
Okay.
In case of, I would say, person with experience, we can prepare 3 or 4. We can prepare 3 or 4. Okay, Sheena? So let's go through this diagram, business process. Then second one is systems. Quite frankly, people understand systems quite well also because of the lot of IT systems that have permeated through our everyday life. For example, Gmail, it's a system. Facebook, it's a system. Facebook, payments. When we are on website to buy something on Amazon, then we send submit. Then what happens? If I tell you a few systems, then you will understand.
Okay.
That, for example, there is a payment system behind the scenes. Let's say there is an Amazon, if you call Amazon.com to place an order, they also submit the payment, right? The payment system is separate from this. Both the systems are interacting with that payment system. Both the system is call center person system and the website system is interacting with the payment system. And then there is an order fulfillment system. If it doesn't make sense, okay, what do you mean by system? In Taco Bell, there is a POS system, point of sale system. The person who takes the order and punches it into the machine, that is a POS system. Then once he punches in the order, let's say 2 burritos, then it goes in the kitchen. You can see the kitchen guy never talks to the front of his person, the POS person. He looks at the screen and fulfills the order. So her system is different.
Okay.
Whereas the system by this girl is different. The POS person is different. Now, why do we call it system? Why don't we call it just computer or system or architecture, application or software? It's all immaterial in this context. I don't want you to worry about that part. I want you to know that we use the term system because to us it is a system. Okay?
Okay.
Right? An IT system. So this is called a system architecture. Simply speaking, the Taco Bell thing is there is a POS system, there is an order fulfillment system. Okay? When the POS system, remember all the POS systems in Taco Bell are connected because they print a daily report of how much total burritos were sold today in all the Taco Bells. That means POS system is not a standalone system. It is not just one machine lying there.
Okay.
It is connected to all the other POS systems in the world of Taco Bell, right? They are connected indirectly.
Yeah.
There is some central system which gets a feed from POS system.
Okay.
Right? And then this POS system sends a feed to this guy also, order fulfillment system. Right? So again, all the order fulfillment system of all the Taco Bells must be connected because they get a daily report that okay, these are the number of burritos we actually fulfilled.
Yeah.
Right? Things like that. So they do a lot of analysis on this thing. When you are placing an order in the ticket window, in the driver window in Taco Bell, it creates an automatic system and then it creates a report that okay, there was 3 people came in and they placed orders.
Yeah.
And whereas the money only came from 2, where is the money for the third one?
Yeah.
That's how they do all this analysis. Otherwise, there is no control on Taco Bell, right?
Sales, yeah.
Right. So on the sales, yes. So all these things. So systems are very important, right? Sometimes we'll think of it as a process. Sometimes we'll think of it as a system. Actually, systems are directly aligned with business process. That's what the whole thing is. That's why they hire BA, right? That this is our business process. Tell us what IT system can be used to implement this business process so that we can have some goals, like for example, in this case, sales tracking. Right? Sometimes the idea is POS person's productivity. So there are different reasons because of which they come out with a certain system. But nevertheless, you have the exposure to process, you have the exposure to system. When you're not a BA, as a BA, there is a middle layer which you don't have the exposure to. That's what I call as requirement. That's what you guys do. Business analyst, system is created by developers.
Yeah.
Business process is already there. What does the BA? BA looks at the business process, identifies implementable requirements. That this is how we will implement. Given that these are your current systems, this is your process, and let's create one more system which will be, this is how it will interact with various other systems, and these are the things that it will achieve for you in terms of your business process goals. This is your business process. India में क्या होता है? Taco Bell. What happens in India? In a halwai ki dukaan. He places the order, he doesn't punch it anywhere. He simply just calculates the money, right? The total is also manual. He can obviously go wrong, and they do go wrong.
Yeah.
And then, and then they, and then they, then once he gets the money, he shouts to the order fulfillment lady, "Hey, भैया, 2 kilo मिठाई बांधना भैया," right? Pack 2 kilograms of some sweet, right? That's what they do, right? Same thing is a business process. So initially, when you will go in, you will see a business process.
Okay.
And you have to implement a system for it. Or you might see a half-cooked business process. In the sense, business process may not be very well defined. So you have to help them define business process. But second thing which will definitely happen is they lack a proper system. Either they have some system which they want to replace completely, or they have a half system, like it is doing some parts, and they want to just fill up. They have got you in now. They want you to create a system for those gaps. Like for example, in case of pre-authorization, they might be obtaining pre-authorization, but they may not be getting auto approval done. So every time there could be a manual approval. So they might just want you to do auto approval. That for some procedures, just give an auto approval. If the amount is less than this, they will come out with the criteria.
Yeah.
So they might ask you for this kind of thing. So in general, now it's here at this point, I know half of my students are able to perceive, okay, so this is what needs to be done. So developer will do it, right? Exactly. Developer will do it. We understand that part. But in America, the way it is done is they will hire one guy to translate the business process into business requirements, and which will be further developable by developer.
Okay.
Developer cannot look at the process and develop. He will look at the business requirements. Business requirement is a simple thing. It is a very simple verbiage. It simply says ability. For example, the business requirement for this thing is system should have the ability to auto approve the incoming pre-authorization requests based on certain criteria, which should be administrable by the administrator.
Okay.
It is a really simple requirement. This is the requirement that some of the people we saw in one of the projects of our candidates. That this was the verbiage, this was the requirement. Okay. So this diagram is really simple. Okay. Business process, requirements, and systems. Last one is technicalities of system. This blue thing is actually you should never do or worry about at all. What I've seen is if the husband is a .NET programmer or a Civil programmer, what I've seen is always, basically most of the people in my class are wives whose husband is in IT. They will first teach them the technicalities of the system, whereas those technicalities are of no use at all to the candidate. I know one girl who's learning PL SQL. Why do you have to learn PL SQL? Did you use it?
Oh, yeah.
शायद रिकॉर्ड ही नहीं हो रहा था.
नहीं हुआ?
नहीं हो रहा था. So PL SQL and SQL are two different things. PL SQL is procedure language as well as SQL. PL means procedure language. Basically, it's a programming language. Yeah. SQL is just getting data. What I have seen is in a project which is extremely technical from BA perspective, might have very basic sequence. Select star from where, group by, that's it. Or maybe order by, or maybe union, that's it. Or distinct. So ये मैं एक बार जरूर बोलता हूँ, so that at least you should understand. The whole idea is you should really understand, like हमारे काम के लिए .NET, PL SQL के बहुत basics. SQL में तीसरी बड़ी important चीज होती है join. The only important thing is join, other than the small basic statements. After this, you don't have to know anything. Really, as a BA, if you know this, select star from where, group by, and join. You're pretty good. Little bit extra is union. That's it. If you can do these things, then you don't have to really do too much. After this, there is really nothing. So that is the projects. Out of 10 projects that we have, one is a technical project, and we don't send you there. Typically, for the freshers, we don't send them there. We try to avoid. But if they go, they don't face too much issue also, because they don't have to do technicalities of deal with the technicalities of the system. They don't have to deal with PL SQL. They don't have to deal with .NET, Java, Civil, programming, or anything, or ABAP. Don't have to deal with ABAP. They don't have to deal with the code. They just have to understand the architecture at a high level. The level where I explained it to you, Amazon.com website sends the data to That's it. If you understand that part, that is the system architecture. There are diagrammatic representations of those simple, very simple and straightforward representations, and that's what you have to understand. So when we finalize 3 or 4 things for you, we will discuss this thing from what was the exact business process, what were the systems involved. Interestingly, from interview standpoint, we don't need to talk about requirements. This is something that you will be gathering at the client side. I've never seen any interviewer asking, tell me the requirement that were there. We have to explain the process in the interviews, and we have to explain the system architecture and then how it impacted your requirements. Nobody really asks for the verbiage. They just say, okay, how it impacted your analysis and things like that. Okay. By the way, this pretty much is the context for analysis of the BRs also. Okay. Anyway, let's go to the next one. So we understood this diagram quite well. It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Person who has no experience it takes him to understand a lot of time. Just to let you know. Example in Siebel or some other system. Basically, I'm usually in Siebel and all. That's why I recorded this thing. But basically, in some system, you should be able to see this. For example, if you can look at some claim management system online and see exactly how the functionality works, what they submit, where do they click, where do they enter the fields, then what do they click. That is really important. People who has worked as a front office person in the doctor's office would know these things really by heart, and they will be able to relate to this thing quite fast. And so you should definitely look at some example. If you have worked for 1 year in a project, you're at Bayer Health, right? So then in that case you will be knowing these things. Client server architecture. This is a very important context. Whenever we are analyzing a functionality, this is the simplest thing that we have to know: client, server, and database. Okay. You know what is that, right? There is a database and there is all the clients are connected to one server, right? I'll go over it quickly, not from fresher's perspective, just by your perspective. You know that at a high level, there's a GUI, which is pretty much the client. Then there's a business logic layer with all the business processing occurs at the server side typically. And then there is a database. Now we'll further break it down into certain pieces. Okay. One is this. Okay. Presentation of data in user-friendly format. Validations occur here. This is the validation. This is a really important thing, that validations occur here. Okay. We cannot forget this. So whenever you're thinking in terms of the functionalities, if it gets to that part, you have to understand that there are validations that occur. So you should know what validations were there in your GUI and the layout. This is the layout. Okay. Basic business rules that were there, validations that were there. I'll see what I can put there.
So validation over here regarding that example, pre-authorization would be validating the subscriber's plan and all that.
No, that is the process step.
Okay.
So what happens is, for every process step, let's say the first process step is, we know that the provider will enter that this is a procedure, and he will enter the details that I am the one who's performing and all that stuff. So those are the fields. Just see exact form. When he's entering, let's say his name will be validated.
Yeah.
Whether it is there in the system or not. So that is what I'm talking about. Then it's submitted, then it will be validated again at the payer side. That is a separate step. But first at the, let's say when he's entering the address, perfect example is, well, let's say when he's entering the address, zip code should not be allowed to be alphanumeric. It has to be numeric.
Numeric. Okay.
That is the validation. I'm talking about really very basic
validation.
GUI validations. GUI field validations.
But in case of that example, I would say, I mean, if it's a basic validation also, the health insurance company is concerned about the plan. That's what I think. I mean, first criteria would be given to the plan. What plan do they have, and if they're...
So you know that, GUI level access rights means कि आपको पता है that the enrollment data can be seen by only that enrollment person. It cannot be seen by the claim processor. So those things are very easy to understand. So you know that which GUI element should be viewable by which person. It kind of comes naturally. So those things are very important thing of the GUI. Although it is not set up there, it is controlled at the business logic layer.
Okay.
And at the database layer.
Yeah.
But still, we should know it happens there.
Okay.
some very basic business rules. Let's look like for example, when the zip code is entered, then the city and state should get automatically populated. These things can be conceived at the GUI level. Okay. But very important thing is business logic layer. At the business logic layer, there is a programming logic. All the logic, programming logic is there. Like for example, zip code and city state should come automatically, right? The logic, the programming will be done by developer in the business logic layer. Okay. You should know this. That we sometimes just call it. Then the system will go there and do it. Basically, we are saying business logic layer. The code will go there and do it. Yeah. That's what it means. It basically joins the data, access rights, any real-time integration. Let's say in case of Amazon.com, when you buy something, you click, right? Then it goes to the payment system and processes your credit card. So all the data, your credit card, amount of money that needs to be charged goes to the payment system. Then payment system talks to the Visa payment system. Yeah. Okay. So this data which is going to the payment system, it actually goes from the business logic layer. Business logic layer does this processing. Okay, I should send this. Once he gets a yes, it processes the logic. Okay, now it is a yes. I should send a message to GUI that okay, the order is ready. Yeah. Okay. And then database. What is this? At the database level, there are different so there are 4 types of data that are really important to you. We'll talk about this thing separately also. One is transactional data. Member data is coming, that is the entire transaction. They will enroll it. Click yes, no, whatever. All that is transactional data. Okay. That this is a transaction that they clicked it, accepted and all that. Then lookup tables. This is really important. Let's say zip code and city state. Yeah. So to provide this functionality, there has to be a lookup table behind the scene. Yeah. So you know this thing, right? Third one is reference data. I'll tell you what reference data is. Yeah. Let's say you want to have, say, how many enrollments occurred last month, right? So then somewhere, okay, even better example is currency. Okay. Currency is a reference data. Okay. Yes.
What's the value of dollar for pound? Something like that?
No, just the dollar itself. Let's say someone says 15. In Amazon.com, when you say 15, you know it's automatically dollar. But if you go to Amazon.co.in, when you pick 15, you know it's automatic rupee. Yeah. But let's say it's a global system behind the scene, right? Let's say there is a global system which basically allows either in USD or GBP or in dollar, like Skype. When you go to Skype, you can pay in all these 3 things or Canadian dollars. Okay. So you have to pick. Yeah. Right, one of these 3 to say this is. So you are transactional data is as part of transaction you say 15 and you are saying USD. But behind the scenes there are 3 currencies listed there in Skype. And Skype, when they are thinking something, they also they think like we'll give 3 currencies as an option. Okay. These 3 currencies, these options that they are giving to you, this is reference data. They have to set it up somewhere. Okay. That the system should show only these 3 currencies, not a 4th currency. Right? Yeah. So these 3 is reference data. It kind of sounds a little bit normal. It's not that normal. Let me tell you one more example. Time zone. When you're going to Yahoo website, you say this is your time zone. Yeah. If your time zone is not listed there, will you be able to enter that time zone? You know how many time zones are there in the world? There are a lot of time zones. Yeah. There are a lot of time zones. Just to let you know, it's not one. It's not 24 time zones. There's a 1 hour difference, right? Pretty much. Yeah. What happens is sometimes, basically the difference in time zone, like in America, they change the time zone, right? They change the time. So Phoenix time zone is supposed to be same as Mexico time zone. But what happens is because they change, then Mexico guys say we don't follow this time zone because they change their time as part of the time zone, right? Okay. So because of this combination, there are multiple time zones in the world. All these time zones have to be listed. Yeah. Right? Okay. Now, what is the importance of this thing? Let's say there is a purchase being made in Mexico. Okay. Let's say his offer expires at 12 o'clock after 1 year. His warranty expires. Right? Now this time zone is very important because it is according to his local time zone. He bought it in his local time zone, and if the local time zone is not processed properly, then what will happen is he might get an extra hour of warranty or he might lose an extra hour of warranty. You understood this example?
Yeah.
Let's say Pacific time zone is not processed properly. Then let's say April 10th is the date when this thing has to expire. And that day, let's say the time zone changes. But let's say the system doesn't recognize this change. The system will either give him an hour of extra warranty or might not. You know that, right?
Yeah, okay, I got it. I mean, for many deals, they specify that, okay, this deal will finish at this time, Eastern time or Pacific time or something like that.
Right? They do, right?
So,
They do that, right?
Yeah.
So if system doesn't have this time zone properly, so this reference data is really important.
Okay.
What is reference data? It's okay. Even if you're not getting a general definition or a general feeling of this thing, just currencies, time zones, which have to be set up in the system for a system to function properly.
Okay.
Right? Slowly and slowly they'll start to make sense to you.
Okay.
That's okay. Okay. They're very, very different from lookup tables. Lookup tables are like some different kind of data. But again, if it doesn't make sense, they both are kind of still related. To me, all these are types of different kinds of master data basically.
Okay.
And these have to be set up in the system, otherwise the system will not function. To me, there are two main types. One is transactional data. Second one is master data.
Okay.
Master data is further reference data, lookup data, pricing masters, problem. So there's a third one is master. There's another data, administration data. What happens is products. In Amazon.com there are products. Those are the only ones you can buy. You cannot buy any other product which Amazon doesn't sell. So behind the scenes, someone is setting the products. If they have 500,000 products, then someone is doing a meticulous job of making sure 500,000 first is not listed.
Yeah.
And 500,000 is definitely listed. Otherwise, they will not be able to sell it because how will the customer buy it? It's not even listed there. Making sense?
Yeah.
That is product master. Someone is maintaining the product master table somewhere.
Okay.
Typically in a company like Amazon, it's a separate system altogether, and website system just talks to that system and shows the data in the GUI. There is no way they can maintain a copy also because it's such a big number of products. Making sense?
Yeah.
For those products, prices also have to be managed.
Yeah.
So there is a pricing master also. Yes, behind the scenes.
Okay.
Okay. So, and then sometimes some companies even maintain a client's master. Amazon.com has only one channel through which they sell, website. They have second channel is phone, but there are companies like Barnes and Noble which sell through 3 channels: store, website, and this thing. Let's say you get United is also like that. They sell it at their point of sale. At the ticket counter, maybe you can buy the ticket, right?
Okay.
Or you can always buy it from the website. You can always buy by calling. You can always buy through a broker. You can always buy through this thing. If you give your mileage plus ID, right? Then whether you buy it from any channel, they are able to recognize that you got 297,970 points.
Yeah.
That means all these 5 channels, systems, separate systems, they are interlinked and they share the common client file.
Yeah.
Making sense?
Yep.
Right? This tells you that they are maintaining only one copy of the client. They are not maintaining separate copies of the client. Otherwise, there is no way they can do this thing.
Yep.
Making sense?
Yep.
So these are like master data.
Master data.
Okay, master data systems, and there is a separate word for it. These are called as master data management system. Typically, there are 3 main master data management systems. 4 main: accounts, contacts, products, pricing. 4 main in sales world. Okay, I'm sorry, just in sales.
That's what I was thinking. He's coming back to
people. Because exactly in claims also, doctor is a master data. All doctors, the doctors with which we have a relationship or with which we do not have a relationship, has to be maintained in one place. Otherwise, that same doctor will submit the claim through, let's say, paper claim. They will not be able to recognize it. So, doctor is one master data. Patients is another master data. The plan is third master data. Which plan is this member subscribed to has to be known to us.
Okay.
And whether that provider is a part of that plan or not also has to be known to us. You know that, right? Otherwise, we will not honor that plan, right? Because one of the things in the plan is patients should go to only those doctors which are part of that plan, right? Part of that network.
Yeah, network.
Blah, blah, blah. So all that is master data for our transactions. Transaction is the claim.
Yeah.
Actually, it's very easy to understand in the claim world. Claim is a transaction. The claim comes in, every claim is a transaction. It needs help from this master data. Otherwise, claim cannot be processed effectively, business wise. And IT system wise, patient's time zone should be known, currency in which he is mentioning all these things should be known. It should be properly set up in the system. Otherwise, the processing will be erroneous. Reference data wise. Okay. There's some other reference data like let's say time period. Let's say he comes in 2013 December. Then all this revenue has to go in 2013, not in 2014. This is a very important regulatory requirement. So someone somewhere, all these periods have to be set up and everything. So there is a lot of work here. We will not get into every process and every detail, but we will get a high level about this thing. When you are preparing your 4 things, which we'll do on the next few days, you have to ensure that you understand the master data in that, the transaction data in that, the reference data in that,
Okay.
and the lookup tables in that.
Okay.
Right? Lookup tables are usually provided to make sure that the data is entered correctly. Zip code, city, state is a perfect lookup table. And what all? Okay, can you think of an example? So, this is a very important context. मेरे को ऐसे लगता है, I feel that you should be able to look at your system and break it down into these pieces. The GUI, the validations that were taking place in the GUI, the user-friendly format and etc. The GUI level access rights, who could see what data, and then some basic business rules that were there in the GUI. You should know which rules are there. If you don't know this basic business, according to me, this is a little bit ambiguous thing. Rest 3 should be your big headache. Like you should definitely know in your system what were the 3 things.
Okay.
Second, business logic layer, you should not worry about much. Okay, you should know only real time and batch integrations that were taking place, especially real time integrations that were taking place within the system. Within the database, you should know these 4 things, as well as the 4th thing, the batch integration. So batch integration, these are the 5 things which you should definitely know. This real time integration you should definitely know, and these 3 things you should definitely know. Okay. So all these things which have this blue shadow, these 3, this one, and these 5, you should dissect your knowledge with reference to any process. We'll pick one process, and we should see what all lookup tables were involved, what all reference data was involved, what all transaction data was involved, what all master data was involved, what else batch integration was involved. Okay, and okay, so this is the whole purpose of this perspective. Now, to me, these 2, this client server architecture and process level and function level, these are the 2 main things. Okay, we'll just keep going through everything. Same thing, we already talked. Same thing. This is same thing. You don't need to worry. Basically, same thing is in a different manner, right? I call it by the simplified business application, Simba diagrams. So this whole diagram is a Simba diagram. This one. This whole diagram. You need to think in terms of Simba diagrams and explain things that okay, that this is how the logic was working, and this is how the logic was. These are the various logic that were there. These were the kind of transactional data. These were the kind of master data involved. These were the kind of lookup tables. For every functionality, you should know how was the real-time interface working, how was the batch working. These are the things you should know about your system for that process that we will finalize. Okay. Okay. This is another very small context. You should not worry about this, but still, what it means is there are certain features in the system which are for personalization. That means users can themselves do. Like for example, let's say there are the format of the field itself. Sometimes if format means like the layout of the whole form, they can change it according to their convenience. In SQL also they can somewhat. List in the list, for example, in hotmail.com, when you go to hotmail.com, there's a list of fields from subject, this and that. Can you change the shuffle? So answer is no. So that personalization option is not present.
Okay.
So imagine if that was present, then that's what is called as personalization. That this option is available as a personalization option.
Okay.
Then administration. This is really the most important thing. For example, products and prices have to be set up by an administrator. Sales rep cannot change it. Customer cannot change it. Customer and the sales rep are the end users for that particular system. Yeah. When they're using that system, certain things are done by the administrators, like the product, setting up the product, setting up the prices. These 2 people should not be able to change it. So administration functions should be clear to you as part of the process that you will finalize and talk about.
Okay.
In pre-authorization, basically all the setup procedures have to be set up by the administrator, right? There are 2 kinds of administrations. One is by business, second one is by IT.
Okay.
At the end of the day, requirements are all given by business, but that's not the point. Even the pricing and product, for example, look at this. Classic, just it makes sense. Business will set this up, right?
Yeah.
The price changes. They will not tell the developer, hey, change the price, because they might want to change the price every day, right? They will not tell that. So they want the system typically where they will just set up the new price by going there themselves. That is the business administration function. Then there are certain things like IT. For example, IT administration is like there are 4 drop downs in any system. Let's say in claim management, there are 4 drop downs: accepted, rejected for enrollees. Let's say the 5th drop down needs to be made available. Who will decide? Business will decide. But who will enter? IT will enter, and IT will maintain. And BA will gather the requirements. In fact, it is such a grave thing, such a big thing. It's not same as prices. Prices they can change right away. But business will never be allowed to touch these things. And it will go through the proper requirement gathering process. And then only Mr. Developer will enter it. Whereas prices they can change themselves. It will not go through any requirement gathering. Forget requirement gathering. It will not even be done by developer. Business himself will change it. Right? Configuration and customization. You don't need to worry. It is basically what I'm trying to say. Certain things require like heavy work. Like in the sense that let's say they want to change the processing logic. Let's say they say that okay, the real-time feed from the payment system should not go to payment gateway. It should go to some other system now. Or let's say they say it should also go to some other system. That is okay. Payment gateway once it processes, the other system should be informed that the payment was processed. Yes, and this is the money we made. Or let's say they say that as part of this thing, tell the amount, tell Visa, the card type, and tell the person in billing details. But also send one more thing called ID, order ID, so that we know down the line why we charged him this money. So let's say this field has to be added. Then configuration work is needed or customization work is needed. Rest are not very important, but these, I would say administration you should definitely know. Personalization, you don't need to worry. Administration, you should definitely know what all things needed to be administered. From this perspective, I'm really just talking about this thing only. You should know what all things were basically lookup data, reference data, all these things. But you should know these are administered. For example, master data is administered by the business people itself. So you should know these things.
Okay.
The good old SDLC. You should know. See, for pre-authorization, many people don't understand, how SDLC works. SDLC prepares a system. It's for preparation of the development of the system. It's not for something else. For example, when they need to change the price, we don't need SDLC. It is just a basic administration that the business will himself do. We don't need a huge SDLC or we don't need a proper 1 year of SDLC. You see my point? Mm-hmm. Right? So in your project, there could have been 2 types of releases. Well, there are 3, 4, whatever you want to say. I would say major and minor. Or you can say mid-level. Then you can say very major. All these things is possible, but to me there are 2 types. Major and minor. Major release means they have typically they have a 1 year roadmap. Like they will say, okay, in this 1 year we'll implement these huge things. Minor means when they implement a major release, typically after that there will be multiple minor releases for additional requirements, which business realizes after seeing the system, or which business realizes when the system was being developed, but it was rejected by the BA because of the time constraints.
Okay.
So he would push it to the next release. Things like that, minor releases. So you should know what is a major, what were the things as part. Your process is pre-authorization here, right? Or maybe the 3 or 4 processes that will be prepared. So you will talk about what kind of requirements were gathered, what was done. For example, there is no such requirement that price should be set up. System, I will give the price and then you set it up. There is no such requirement. The requirement will be business should be able to set the price up by himself.
Okay.
Right? Let's say there is a requirement. Business should be able to set up the status that they can have. Good. But business should be able to introduce a new status on their own. This requirement should be rejected by you. So this requirement would have not been there. You should know what requirement made sense, what requirement did not make sense as part of your process.
Okay.
Then you can talk articulately that this was the requirement they gave and I rejected it. That's what I do. Okay. They wanted to be able to like sometimes business, the perfect example, business says we'll set up the access rights of everybody. IT says we will not let you set up the access rights. We will set up the access rights. Right? Status messages they never say they want to configure themselves. Okay. But access rights is something they will always say. They'll say we want to be able to set up a new user. IT says we want to be able to set up the new user. BA comes in the picture. BA decides, helps moderate those discussions. Basically, it's all about licensing also. That is one of the key winning factor. That when you're introducing new users yourself, then to the system, then we don't know whether we are buying the license or not. So we have to, there are huge repercussions to it. There are multiple other things. IT doesn't want users to introduce new users to the system just like that, because then sometimes performance could be impacted and they may not set up the user properly. Then the system will not function. For example, when a user is set up, not only are entering his user ID, but you're also entering his time zone. You're also entering his language. You're also entering his locale. You're also entering multiple other parameters based on which the system takes a decision. So all this should be left to IT people to set it up. They should say this is a new guy and he will work like Mike. He's a sales rep. Rest should be taken care of by IT. Typically.
Okay.
This is a typical thing, right? But there will be multiple lines of. So there is black and white. I can give clear examples of. But gray is where you as a BA participated and try to pacify the business community as well as satisfy the development community. There's another example. I can give multiple examples, but those processes are totally different for you. We'll think of in terms of pre-authorization. Like new procedures. Let's say new procedures. There are 65,000 procedures on CP and ICD-10. Let's say new procedure is introduced. Who will be allowed to set up? Can business themselves set up, or IT should be only allowed, or only IT should be allowed? Answer is only IT should be allowed. IT should do its own due diligence before they can enter a new procedure. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting.
IT will decide.
What happens is they say, yes, we want to, then IT will set it up.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because see, multiple functionalities use this particular line item. New reference data is introduced, right? So there is a list of 65,000 somewhere, which is again and again showing in different forms. Different forms it is showing, right? If 65,000 first is introduced, then how will the business make sure it is being shown in all the forms? Only IT knows which check marks to enable so that it shows properly everywhere. So IT say, I will set it up. You tell me, you give me on a piece of paper that this. Yes. Now this will not go through the SDLC process. Business will say, I will not make it a part of SDLC. This should be an ad hoc requirement. If I give you something today, that new ICD-10 has to be entered, I want it to be entered within a matter of 1 day. I don't want 3 months of SDLC. I don't want to wait for your minor releases and major releases.
Okay.
This very rich context is only known to people who have worked. If you haven't worked, you won't understand these things, and I don't even try to teach.
It depends upon the priority. It will go through 1 day.
हाँ वो पूरा decision लेना पड़ता है SLAs. So I remember like we were working in a company. There they had something called as questions and answers.
Okay.
So they wanted to be able to ask. So cold callers, use questions and answers as part of the marketing system. Cold callers get the numbers and then they call the targets, and then they ask questions, and then they get possible answers. So what happens is, let's say they think of a new question and new answer, that we should ask this question also. Hey, whether you're married or not. Should they wait for 3 months before it can get into the system, or should they wait for 3 days or 3 hours? This was a huge discussion. We decided that will give them an SLA of 2 days or 1 day. Within 24 hours it will be set up. Actually, we gave them 72 hour SLA. That within 72 hours, if you tell us a new question and new answer, it will be set up in the system. Making sense?
Okay.
Right? And then you can use it as part of your script. Making sense? Whole detail of this process are missing here. All the details are missing here. I don't want you to get into any process. I want you to understand what I'm trying to say is like there is usually a discussion. In your case, ICD-10 is a perfect example. Let's say there is a new code. Let's say there is a new member. He should be immediately available. That's how the system works, right? If the new member gets enrolled, it gets immediately available everywhere, right? Yeah. So that is automatic. But other things will not be automatic. Like for example, ICD-10 code. A new code is introduced. It has been set up properly. There is not only one system, there are multiple other systems. It is a part of a batch feed also.
Of course.
From claim system to payment system, it's part of the batch feed.
Yeah.
There is a huge repercussions.
Okay.
So only IT can understand where all it should go.
Okay.
Perfect. So this whole SDLC context of the process should be really clear. First, you should understand the business process. You know business process. You know fixed system. You know functionalities. Then you know client server architecture detail, lookup table, etc. All these things. And once you know all these things, then you know what were you gathering as part of first red time. Then what were you gathering as part of what, like whatever, and what did you do as part of training? What did you do as part of testing? It's very easy to re-engineer and understand other things if you've done one. Let's say you've done testing, you can easily understand what were the requirements. And you don't have to really understand. Remember 30 days, 30 minutes. So this is a very important perspective. Interview is a 30-minute encounter. You should know a lot. But at the end of the day, the interviewer has to ask everything in 30 minutes. You can, if you know how to take interviews, you can use it to your advantage. You know, first 5 minutes are usually spent in just talking about what the project is all about. You should ask questions from there. What were the master data? You know these 3 things, right? Ask them questions. What were the master data is involved? What kind of real-time interfaces did you have? What kind of batch interfaces did you have? You know, all these things. What kind of challenges you are having? What are the systems that you guys are dealing with? Things like that. When you ask, it will, instead of 5 to take 10 minutes. So you pass 10 minutes. When you're giving answers, make sure you bring them back to these 4 or 3 processes that you'll finalize and prepare for. This is your key thing. Any good interviewer will not interfere. If you know something, they would want to know what do you know. So you say very clearly, I know about pre-authorization, for example. That is one thing. And then you take him towards that. And then you explain everything. These were the systems. These are the functionalities. These are the real-time interfaces. These were the batch interfaces. These were the transactions that were carried out. These were the various master data involved. And this was the process that was being followed. Belay. Another 15 minutes. He will ask one cross question. Once he asks the cross question, that's where your litmus test comes. That's where 1 and 0 occurs. Pass and fail occurs. Right? If you can handle that, then you're basically pass. To me, this is the most important thing. Okay? The most important thing I mean is, interview is a 30-minute encounter and you should be able to handle it. If you just do something basic. Systems context. Any IT project is about functionalities of that particular system that you guys are working on and integrations with other systems. You must understand that no system lives and works in solitude. It is not an island. It's always interconnected with other islands. And there will be definitely multiple islands. Sometimes, freshers and all, they say, sir, एक ही system क्यों नहीं बनाते बहुत बड़ा? मैं क्या ऐसी गाड़ी बनाते जिसमें सब कुछ आ जाए, उसमें लोहा भी आ जाए, बच्चे भी आ जाएं, बंदे भी आ जाएं, सब कुछ आ जाए, और अगर प्रेजेंट को भी लेके जाना है वो उसमें बुलेट प्रूफ हो तो वो प्रेजेंट भी चला जाए उसी में, तो it doesn't work out, right? Typically in a company like Yahoo, you can't imagine they will be having not 1 or 2 systems, they will be having 1,000 systems, and I'm not exaggerating, there could be more. And just for sales, they could be having tens of systems. Just for claim processing, they could be having, for the same thing, not just for the 10 systems that are interacting, those will be doing the same exact thing, opportunity management. It's just that one VP decided to use one system, second VP said, I can't wait for you to accommodate my changes, I will start using some other opportunity management system. So they could be using different systems. So basically they could be using multiple CRMs, different customer service systems and blah, blah, blah. Just for the same thing. And obviously for doing one thing, they could be using 3-4 systems too. That is always there. So we as a BA, when we get a requirement, have to definitely validate against the myriad of systems or the web of systems that the company has. Okay. That is one of the important things that we do as a BA. And if you are preparing 3 or 4 processes for interview purpose, you should know what systems were there. Yeah. Batch and integration. If you know 2 or 3 interfaces well, they will usually get hung on one interface. And you just need to take them to your favorite interface that you have prepared well as part of this preparation. You should be able to handle that. Like for example, you can just talk about when the pre-authorization occurs, then there is usually an interface with the member data, master data, which is usually separate from everything. Okay. Because there are different kinds of claims, right? How the member validation took place. It was through a SOA call. You're talking about the technicalities. And these are the fields we were sending. This is what the response we were getting. This is your technicalities of the system. Then these, as part of the system level, these were the fields we were sending. These were the feeds we were sending, real-time feeds. These are the batch integrations they were taking place. These were the access rights which were there. Well, you know everything that was there. Okay. Symbol diagram is really nothing but same thing. It's just that I call it simplified business application architecture diagram. This particular diagram right here, today I just added some things to it. It represents, you know, what you should know. These blue ones you should know. These 5 blue ones, this one, and this blue, like these 3 blue ones. And these are the various things you should understand. This is more complete in itself at today. And you should definitely know the symbol diagram. This is the symbol diagram. Is like GUI is made of these things. Business logic layer is made of these things. Database is made of these things. Transactional data and 4 types of master and 3 types of master data. And then batch integration occurs. These things you should know. This is for freshers, how much you should learn about anything. But for interviewer, I would say this is the most important thing for the interview purposes. And remember this thing, it is a 30-minute process. Although you should know all this, but if you're smart, you can just learn this 1, 2, 3 and keep in there. Depth, you have to learn it in any depth, every depth. For in-person interview, that is a preparation you need to have. This is something that I use to actually explain to freshers. That for submission, you should know this. For interview, you should know this. Confirmation, after you get the confirmation, you should know this. First 3 weeks, you should know this. And when you get the work, it is just about one thing. You should know everything about that one thing, right? That's what happened, right? This gray area is where we come into picture. If there is no gray area, then nobody needs our service as a fresher, right? This is the main thing, right? Whenever you're understanding anything, like you should definitely try, like any main concept. First thing is you should understand for day-to-day life. That already we did, right? The pre-authorization, everything. Without this, don't get into any main concept. Main concept, immediately come to example from day-to-day life, and then start the entire journey. Okay. Then there are certain things like what kind of in-person interview lines you should use. Make the lines. When you speak in front of me, that's what you're doing. What I've seen is, I get a lot of exposure to Skype interviews, right? Sometimes people go out there in person also and show me later this is what they talk. What I've seen is 90% of the lines that they used in front of me, in front of the interviewer, were repeated. They actually did those first. They spoke the same exact lines in front of me first. The point is, whatever you speak in front of me is exactly how you will deliver there. You will not be able to think of something new there. It's very hard. Whenever you see a main concept, you should definitely make sure that you differentiate it from the most confusing thing. For example, validation and validation. Remember validation, GUI level validation and the member validation. Member validation is a concept, where GUI level validation is like kind of IT system thing. It's part of the GUI only. So I just want to make sure. Similarly, assistance help resources. You should know for this kind of thing where you can go. For example, like certain things you should know. Like these are various resources. You can refer to certain things from some things there in the project documents. Some things are part of the manuals. Some things are part of some support website. There are some IT toolbox kind of websites. Some things you can get from there. But remember, certain things you can get directly from Google. Some things you can know from your friends. Some things you can find from your mentor.